The New York Giants head to Philly's House of Horrors in search of their first road win against the Eagles since 2013. But will they see the new NFC East champs backups or starters? We're discussing that and more on today's crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Eagles, coming your way next.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, written in all lowercase letters, to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crossover Thursday. It is Locked On Giants, Locked On Eagles. I'm Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants. He is Gino Camilleri of Locked On Eagles. It is the final Crossover Thursday for us here at the Giants. Not the final one for Gino and the Eagles, the new NFC East champion. So, Gino, much as I hate to say it, congratulations. It was a long haul for you guys, but you got it.
And once again, we have a different NFC East champion now for 2 consecutive decades. I think that is the biggest story. If you were to just look at it from a statistical improbability standpoint, that's one of those ones in sports that's out there. But as opposed to last year when the Eagles fell off at the end of the season, when adversity hit for this team, Patricia, they answered the bell. And without quarterback 1 last week, and heck, without quarterback 2 for a little bit of that game, they were able to put a stomping on the Cowboys. And I'm sure your fans didn't mind that game either, seeing the Cowboys get run over a little bit.
Nah, it's always good. It's always a good day when the Cowboys get run over. It's a little bit better, though, when the Eagles get run over. But look, again, we give credit where credit is due. The Eagles, the champs. And Gino, let's talk. We're going to talk about, obviously, the game. What are the key stories? We'll talk about the matchups, the keys to victory. And for the Giants, they go into this season finale, regular season finale, with a lot of question marks. I mean, a lot. Is this the last game for head coach Brian Daboll, for general manager Joe Shane? Are the Giants going to be able to carry over last week's scoring fest that they put on field against the Colts? Or was that just, a freak that just happened? So much there. The Giants haven't won in Philadelphia since 2013. It's always been a difficult place for them to play. And, I guess we could start by saying, what's the plan for the Eagles? I mean, there's been some talk that the Eagles might sit their starters because I believe they've locked up the second seed. Mm-hmm. So really, there's nothing to be gained or lost if they play, this weekend. Really, the only thing to be gained is if Saquon Barkley wants to pursue the record. So Gino, I mean, what's your take on that? I don't think I don't know that it would make sense for Saquon to do that. I don't know that Saquon is that kind of guy. I would be surprised, but what's your take on that?
If you listen to my show yesterday at Locked On Eagles, I have a nice little segment about that. But basically, this is a head versus heart decision. Your head is saying, we lucked into getting this bye, right? Because we were without quarterback 1, Jalen Hurts, last week. In the last couple seasons, and we know back in 2022, the Eagles had to bring Jalen Hurts back a little banged up to secure that seed in 2022 to get the 1. And that came because they weren't able to do things in week 16 and week 17 that allowed them to lock it up. They locked it up now. There's nothing to be gained, nothing to be lost. You haven't had a bye week since week 5, and a lot of players, not just Jalen Hurts, are banged up right now. Your head is saying there is no way you can put the starters in this football game. The heart is saying, how great would that be to break Eric Dickerson's record against his former team? And Saquon has to be thinking about that. But the great thing about Saquon is that as good as he is as a player, I think he's an even better human being. And the one thing that he really does not have is a big ego, in my opinion. And I don't think he's going to let the ego get in the way to break this record. Because, yeah, records are great, but Lombardi's are better. People break records all the time. You can't take away that Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. And Saquon is just, he's got class. Say
Yes.
what you want about him, Giant fans. The guy's got class. But from a Giants perspective, right now, like I said, a lot of question marks. And perhaps the biggest one is, where are the Giants going to finish in the draft order? Now, by winning last week against the Colts, the Giants, who had the number one overall pick, they fell to 4. And that did not please very many fans who just, they were upset. They're like, oh my God, it just cost us a chance of Shedeur Sanders. It cost us a chance of Cam Ward, and Travis Hunter trading down, insert whatever scenario you want here. But what I have said time and time again is that Brian Daboll, say what you want about him, this team is not tanking. And, you saw it last week. Malik Neighbors came out, and the guy is banged up beyond, crazy with his lower body injuries. He came out, played, he set 1,000 yards, which set a new franchise record. Brian Burns is banged up. He has not missed a snap all season long, despite the fact that guy is, I don't know how he's even walking, let alone getting out there to play. So there is still some fight in this Giants team. There's some feistiness. But, in many ways, Gino, a win against the Eagles, if it were to happen, big if, would it feel almost, I don't know, would it feel cheap if the Eagles sit their starters? I mean, I'd say a win is a win. I don't think that it would, but I'm just wondering, you put like a little asterisk there.
I just think that the NFC East storylines are very funny because we are falling into a spot now where we are talking about potentially the Giants making a move to not tank, but would you want to win this game to hold on to a lower draft spot? Well, that happened a couple years ago when the Eagles pulled Jalen Hurts in that game against Washington, and Giants fans were not too pleased about that. So I just think it's funny how things all come kind of full circle. I don't think it would be cheap. Because I want to ask you one thing, Patricia, and I think this name is going to haunt Eagles fans. Drew Lock, he was one of the guys that put that arrow in the back of the Eagles last year on the last drive of the game in Seattle, one of those games they couldn't win. Is this team having more fun with Drew Lock at quarterback? Because it just seemed that way when I was watching that offense last week. You're in the building, so you could get that feel, but is he ready to go out there and maybe just show that he can get a contract elsewhere or be the Giants backup in number 2? Is it a fun environment right now with Drew at the quarterback position?
I don't know that I would say it's fun, but I think Drew is maybe injected a little life.
There you go. Yeah.
Giants quarterback situation, as you know, Gino, has just been a disaster. It's been an absolute disaster. And what you get with Drew Lock is you get a guy who's not afraid to take chances. Now, does he always make the right decisions? No. But he's not afraid to take chances. Whereas, you look at Tommy DeVito, and he plays the game a little bit more conservatively, which is why he has such low turnover numbers. Mm-hmm. So, and then, before him, when Daniel Jones was here, I mean, who just couldn't figure out what was going on there. Daniel Jones never looked like the guy he was in 2022. And, you sit there and you wonder, well, how much of that was because he ran a lot, and that kind of, took some of the onus off of the passing part of the game because, that was such a big part of his game. So, but to answer your question, Gino, I think there's confidence in Drew Lock. He's a great guy, by the way, very helpful. He's always, willing to spend a few extra minutes if you need him for something, one-on-one or anything like that. But is he the long-term answer for this team? No. Is he maybe the bridge quarterback for this team? I would be surprised if that's the way they go. That said, Brian Daboll typically likes to have some kind of continuity, or I should say carryover from year to year. So, Daniel Jones is gone. Tommy DeVito is going to be an an exclusive rights free agent. Drew Lock is an unrestricted free agent. So maybe you say to yourself, okay, you know what? Drew Lock gives us the best chance to win if we need to put him in there for a couple games until we get a rookie up and running. But who's to say that they're even going to go with a rookie this year? Because this year's rookie class is just so unimpressive. You've got Sanders, you've got Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe is probably a little further down from those other guys. But think about it, Gino. if you were to put these guys and slot them behind last year's class, would any of them be a top 10? Probably not.
Ooh, that's an interesting discussion, and I would love to join you for an episode once draft season hits, because I've been able to actually watch Shedeur multiple times here living in Denver live, and I just think the moxie in that kid, that's a New York, can live in the limelight, can really shine in that environment. But going back to last year, I'm with you. It's, would you rather have the 4th overall pick last year or this year? I think everybody's saying, yeah, if we could, we would have a chance probably at Drake May, and you could potentially have him as your future quarterback. Does a win hurt that even more? Yeah, that would really affect things in terms of this whole quarterback race. But we're going to see a game between Drew Lock and Kenny Pickett that I don't think anybody on the NFL schedule making thought was going to happen at the end of the season here. So this is a great game, even though it doesn't really mean much for the Eagles. It means a lot more for the Giants in terms of seeding. But I don't think either team is really going to lay over and die in this game. I don't think this is just going to be, hey, let's go out there, have a kick in the park. These two teams still hate each other. That hate isn't fake. Like, they definitely don't like each other. And Drew Lock had a quote before the year saying we have a chance to go beat the Eagles. Now, Drew Lock, it's your time. Let's see how Sunday goes.
Exactly. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk some more about Sunday's game from an Eagles perspective. I'm Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants. He's Gino Camilleri of Locked On Eagles. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. If you love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time has made it even easier to get the tickets that you want for your favorite events with their newest feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time's vast inventory and flash deals offer you loads of options. Plus, they make the ticket buying experience so much easier. Their super deals offer great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So go on and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossover Thursday, the final crossover Thursday of the 2024 season for us here at Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, but not the final one for Gino Camilleri, co-host of Locked On Eagles. He and his co-host, Lou DiBiase, will bring you everything you need to know as the Eagles try to get back to the top of the mountain. And Gino, you mentioned some of the quarterback, the questions regarding quarterback, whether they play the starters and whatnot. I mean, what do you basically see happening with this one? Because again, it doesn't make sense to play them because they can't improve their standing and you want to be healthy. But, if they decide to sit everybody, do you feel that the Eagles backups can maybe beat the Giants backups?
Can they beat them? I absolutely think they can beat them, but I think the bigger discussion, and I'll get back into who's actually going to be on the field in a second, but I think the bigger discussion, and it's kind of funny that you brought this up, I got a call yesterday from an Eagles scout actually, and he said, I got 2 questions for you. Do you play Saquon in this game? And number 2, are you going to go 3 weeks without Jalen Hurts touching a football? And I think that is the thing we have to look at. If he does clear protocol, which he most likely will, last week he got knocked out of that game when of course, we lose to Washington, and then he's out against Dallas, and he most likely will be back this week. But do you want to play him? Does he need those preseason type of drives? I don't think so. Nick Sirianni doesn't like to play his guys in the preseason. I think he'll give him that bye week, allow him to rest, allow some of these backups to go out there and play. Now, we had a discussion on Locked On Eagles about a week and a half ago about how good the depth of this team is. And after last week, I applaud the heck out of them because it wasn't just Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett goes out of that game while playing with broken ribs, mind you. In comes Tanner McKee, third string quarterback. He goes 3 for 4 with 2 touchdown passes, and his only incompletion was a back shoulder one-handed catch that A.J. Brown had 1 foot down in the end zone, and it was close to being a touchdown. This team is playing exactly like that, like a team that it doesn't matter if you are Jalen Hurts, Jalen Carter, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, or if you're the long snapper or the last guy on the practice squad. These guys genuinely take joy in playing with each other. And some of the backups they have, I think especially on the defensive line is where you'll see it. You'll see guys like Moro Ajoma, former 7th-round pick out of Texas, who has really burst onto the scene. Thomas Booker, former 5th-round pick of Houston, who's been bobbling around the NFL, made his way in camp, and he'll see a lot of snaps. And at the edge position, you'll probably see more of Bryce Huff, who is just coming off of an injury. And then the defensive secondary, guys like Cooper DeJean probably won't play, and Quinyon Mitchell won't play. But the guys behind them, the next man up, that's really been the story of the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, where they basically crumbled and laid over and died last year in 2023 once they were out a lot of those guys. When they get injuries, it's next man up to the plate. Like, they don't feel sorry for themselves a lot of their time, and I think this game will really show that the guys that maybe don't get a lot of the snaps, they're going to go make the most of it.
Gino, at the start of the season, there was some question as to whether Nick Sirianni was on the hot seat. Obviously, winning the NFC East kind of calmed those questions down, I think. But if he doesn't take this team far into the playoffs, do those talks start up again, do you think?
Yeah, you know how I felt about Nick Sirianni about 3 months ago, right? I was at the front of the castle ready to storm the gates and get him out of there. And I think a lot of it really came down to what happened at the end of 2023 through the bye week into week 5 this year. Post bye week, this has been one of the best teams in football. And if you look at the coach and say that he's not directly responsible to a large extent of getting them to 4 straight playoff trips, the winningest Eagles coach in his first 4 seasons, one of the winningest coaches in their first 4 seasons ever in NFL history, the only way the pitchforks come back out is that if it's the first round, you're hosting a playoff game, and either Washington or Green Bay comes in there and just puts a whooping on you, then you're probably saying, okay, what is going on? Can he really not get it done when the calendar flips? But how do you look at what he has done over the last 3 months and say that somebody outside of this building can do it better? Because I personally thought that they could. I personally believe that there was somebody else outside of Philly who could get this job done. But since then, every time there's a question and every time I've wanted him to be more responsible, just for my own kind of sensible being and just wanting to know my guy running the team like has his head on his shoulders, it never really mattered what we thought from the outside. It mattered what the guys in the building thought. And to rip off 10 straight after the bye, win 11 out of 12, secure the 2 seed, the talking's right there. I don't need to say anything else. That's why you keep your head coach.
For sure. Now, he also, he also changed over the coordinators. And I think at the time when you and I spoke before the season, you had some questions about whether that would work out. Do you feel that it has worked out the way it needs to? And, I get it. They've won the division, so I guess you could say yes. But are these coordinators getting the most out of the talent that they have, in your opinion?
That's the way to really phrase it, in my opinion. And Vic Fangio on the defensive side, that is the guy that you needed all along. He is the one who is really elevating the scheme and making these guys realize that Vic is going to put us in a good position. We just have to go out there and be our true selves. And that's probably what the problem was last year with Matt Patricia and Sean Desai, is that they didn't have a really good feel on the locker room, and I don't think the guys ever bought in. On the offensive side of the ball, is it better than Brian Johnson last year? In my opinion, yes. But Kellen Moore is Kellen Moore, and I think if you watch the games he was coordinating for the Cowboys when he was in the division, you'll probably see a lot of those same tendencies, a lot of those same calls, a lot of the first down heavy runs, a lot of the shallow crossers that everybody can kind of just pick out of a hat. And if you watch JT O'Sullivan's QB school, he's sitting there and saying, I don't know who's drawn up these formations for the Eagles, but a lot of them look the same. We thought Kellen Moore was going to be this genius, this second coming to like really elevate the scheme and make them that much better, where you have an AJ and a Devontae, and you can do Chip Kelly like things when Chip did it with Deshaun Jackson and Macklin and Shady and make them that much better. I don't think I've seen that with Kellen Moore. Last week, he did a good job getting the backup quarterbacks in a position to succeed, but what was it once again? It was Devontae Smith winning one-on-ones, A.J. Brown winning one-on-ones, Saquon Barkley following his blocks. Nothing is, oh, how did that guy get open? Like, there's no creativity that's Shanahan-esque or LaFleur-esque that we thought he was going to bring. But to still rip off 40 points with backup quarterbacks, put 30 points up at will, that's what we wanted this offense to be all along. You can move the goalpost with Kellen Moore, I think, a little bit more and probably be a little bit more critical with him because of all these different moving parts on offense, and your head coach is a quote-unquote offensive guy, so how much goes to him as well. Vic Fangio really is the hire that I love. I wanted, for the longest time, a Spagnuolo. You need, and you've been around the NFC East, Patricia, when Andy Reid had Jim Johnson, that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. When Andy could focus on his offense, Jim Johnson could do what he has to do on his defense, two different worlds. That's what Fangio's doing right now. He owns that defensive room. He's the grumpy old curmudgeon that's going to do it his way, but his way works. His defense is at the top of the NFL in a lot of different statistical categories right now. That's what's going to win them the Super Bowl. As much money is invested on the offense, the defense is what is going to take them over the hump, in my opinion.
Gino, there are some critics or haters, I guess if you want to call them that, who say that the Eagles' run game has only been able to do what it's been able to do because they have faced bad run defenses for the most part. I think people are selling the Eagles a little short there, but I'd like to get your take on that.
I don't think they've played bad run defense. I mean, I guess Pittsburgh is all of a sudden a bad run defense, and Baltimore is all of a sudden a bad run defense, and I don't know how we're going to just change that. But I think if you look at what DeAndre Swift did last year and what Miles Sanders did before that, talk about somebody elevating beyond what you got in the past. The run game is what it is because of Saquon Barkley and that offensive line. The offensive line has always been the best in football, but could you get somebody that Lou and I always say takes all the meat off of the chicken wing bone? And they finally got that in Saquon. Look at how many of those yards are coming before he's even contacted. And that's not because they're playing bad teams. These are 31 other teams that are professionals that are paid to play and stop the run. I don't want to hear any of that narrative. The thing that is able to elevate them is that Saquon can take so many hits and so many carries because he's not being contacted in a large majority of these long runs. If you look at I believe it was 2 games ago against Washington, he had over 100 yards in the first quarter. I think 90 some of them came before contact. So if you could keep him healthy, keep him clean, and that's because your offensive line is just drawn up beautifully by the best run game coordinator in the sport in Jeff Stoutland, well, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. You want me to strike up a little violin and play a little song? That's how I feel about that. But that's the way that the game is moving, though, Patricia. You look at Derrick Henry, you look at Josh Jacobs, look at these teams that are a little bit proactive ahead of the curve. Teams are getting lighter in the defensive backfield. If you're not going to be able to stop us against the run, we're going to run the football. That's common sense.
Certainly something that the Giants miss for sure. All right. Coming up next, we're going to wrap things up with keys to the game with Gino Camilleri, Locked On Eagles, myself, Patricia Traynor, Locked On Giants, on this crossover Thursday edition. Locked On Giants, Locked On Eagles. Don't go anywhere. Hey, everybody, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossover Thursday, Locked on Giants, Locked on Eagles. The Giants wrap up what has been a disappointing 100th anniversary season against the Philadelphia Eagles at the Link, which has been a house of horrors for them. And of course, the Eagles, they're just playing out the string and getting ready for the postseason. And, from my perspective, Gino, it's almost like pointless to say, okay, what are the keys to winning the game? Because I think a lot of Giant fans are just like, just lose, baby.
Yeah.
That being said, you look at the Giants, one thing that kind of has struck me over the last several weeks about this Giants team is that it's almost like preseason. You know how with preseason you get all these different guys that come in and you're like, who's that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what number is that? So the Giants, they have some more injuries. They've had to shuffle across every single position group, it seems. And, at this point, I'm not sure, other than playing for pride, which I know is kind of, some people will say is loser talk, but it is important. At this point, it's like, okay, the bigger question for the Giants is going to be what will ownership, I should say, decide regarding Brian Daboll and GM Joe Shea. Now, my feeling, and I've been saying this on my show, people don't want to hear it, but I'm not changing my opinion based on what I'm sensing. I think Shane stays. I am not sure that Daboll stays, but I do think last week's win helped them a little bit. I think if he can get this mash unit that he has to perform decently against the Eagles, I think maybe he's going to help himself even further with returning. Now, Gino, one other thing, Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network just reported that Nick Sirianni said that they're going to rest all the starters. So no Saquon or no of the starters. So we have our answer there. From your perspective now, what do the Eagles need to do to accomplish besides maybe coming out of this game unscathed?
Yeah, unscathed is the way to approach this. And Nick Sirianni, smart guy. Never was not a fan of him. Always loved Nick Sirianni. Just kidding. That actually is a smart decision by him. But I think the key, and I want to say this because what you just said was very reminiscent of how I think the Cowboys were looking at last week's game with Mike McCarthy, where he started to rip off some wins, and they're like, oh, okay, maybe he does keep his job a little bit. And then last week, they rolled over and died. I mean, let's just call it what it is. 41-7 on the road against a chance to completely derail the Eagles season, and they didn't even give him a showing. I believe the Giants will do a better job than Dallas did last week, in my opinion. And I think they'll give the Eagles a legitimate fight. And not to say that the Eagles won't try their hardest, but I don't think that they're going to put themselves in any precarious positions, put out too much tape that is going to identify too many clues to them moving forward. Very preseason-esque, as you had said, Patricia. And ultimately, the key to the game is just don't get hurt. Don't get hurt, either team. And I will say this, I know it's tough from a Giants perspective, right? When a season isn't going the way that you had thought it was going to. But from my scouting mind, taking off the Eagles cap here, guys are not going to quit in this last game because for every Dexter Lawrence, for every Brian Burns, there's a guy who it might be his last snap in the NFL, and he's going to want to put out good tape. This isn't a roll over and die game for the Giants by any measure. I think it's a chance to keep Brian Daboll's job, like you had said, Patricia. If the guys do respond to him with a unit that is banged up, hey, that's what you want to see out of your head coach. But these guys might be playing for future jobs. As badly as the fans want to lose, the guys in the building hate losing. That is their profession. They only get to do this thing 17 times in a season. They don't want to lose this game.
No, they don't. And, I get the fans' perspective. They want, the number one draft pick. I totally get it. Yeah. But good luck. I mean, if that were the case, if they were going to tank then you sit Malik Neighbors and you sit Brian Burns.
Oh,
You sit
yeah.
some of these guys. I mean, it just never, ever made sense to suggest that they were tanking. But yet that was the narrative that a lot of fans believed what was going on. Gino, final thoughts on this game this weekend. I mean, again, it doesn't have the pizzazz as if the two teams were fighting for the NFC East title. So it's kind of a meh type of game. But what can you think both sides get excited about?
Ooh, what can we get excited about? Well, I will say this. I will continually fall in line with the opinion that the NFC East is the best reality television that is just not scripted. You cannot script it. There's always great storylines. I think there's going to be a scrap at some point in this game. I think there's going to be some rough and tumbleness. I think Drew Lock is going to throw as many touchdown passes as he does interceptions. I think that he's, like you said, he'll put some opportunities and balls out there. I think the Eagles will probably go with Tanner McKee, give him a full game, get Kenny Pickett healthy. So I think it'll be a low-scoring game, but at the same time, like, do these young players just go out there and have a ball and they're just chucking the rock all over the field? We will see, but I will say this, Patricia, I can't believe this is already the 7th season that you and I have done these crossovers for. This is about the 20th one we have done together. It is an absolute pleasure to get to do this each and every year. So
I feel the same way. You and Lou are, you guys are the best. And I know sometimes some of my listeners are like, oh, Eagles. So not all Eagle people are bad.
We're all family here at Locked On.
You're all family, especially here on the Locked On Network. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of Crossover Thursday. Again, the last one for Locked On Giants, but still plenty more for Locked On Eagles. And also, we have continuing our 5-day-a-week schedule. Now that the holidays are all in the books, we're going back to 5 days a week. So make sure you tune in to Locked On Eagles as they get you ready for the postseason. Keep it here on Locked On Giants while I keep a watch on what ownership decides. It's going to be a very interesting next week, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a lot of things to say about what the Giants ultimately do. So that being said, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to our everydayers and everybody in between. For Gino Camilleri, I am Patricia Traina, and we will see you on our respective shows again tomorrow.